First, we're going to sterilize our cake board using edible spirits or vodka and a piece of paper towel. So just add your edible spirit or vodka to your paper towel and sterilize your boards. Okay, always sterilize your cake boards before you decorate your cakes. You don't know where these boards have been, dust and all sorts of particles and all that stuff. You have to get rid of all of that before putting our delicious cakes on our board. Next, add your base layer. So I added a bit of buttercream beneath this cake layer before adding this, so the buttercream would help adhere the cake to the board. Some bakers use corn syrup or glucose syrup, some bakers use ganache, some bakers use mashed fondant or royal icing. It really depends on you. Personally, I love to use royal icing or mashed fondant for my fondant cakes to adhere the cakes to the board before applying my fondant and whatnot. Then for my whipped cream cakes, I like to use ganache because the moment that cake enters the fridge and it chills, trust me, that cake is not going anywhere. Once that chocolate ganache solidifies, it is sealed. Okay, but because I do not refrigerate or freeze my buttercream cakes, I do not use ganache. I use either buttercream, but preferably glucose syrup or mashed fondant or royal icing. Anywho, sorry for the background noise. An aeroplane is passing by. Anyway, so I added my base layer. This is a vanilla and spice marble cake. It's a vanilla and spice marble cake. I don't know how to describe that. Basically, it's a vanilla cake that has been marbled with a fruits and spice cake without the fruits in it. So it's like vanilla and spice. Yeah, it has warm spices and it just tastes really good. Really good and warm and welcoming. Of course, the vanilla is also there. This cake is very moist. Be not deceived with what you are seeing here. So I am making a 2-tier buttercream Spidey and his amazing friends cake for a 1-year-old birthday party. So this base tier is a 7-inch in diameter round cake tier of 3 layers, and in between those layers we have white buttercream frosting, which I made from vegetable shortening and icing sugar. Okay, so here I'm just using my leveler. Yes, for those of you wondering, this blue thingy, it's a leveler. You can get it from your regular cake store or your supermarket near you, or any store that sells, cake tools or just like stationary leveling stuff, basically. So what that does is it helps me ensure that my cake layers are leveled, especially because I'm trimming. Even without trimming, you also have to check that your cake layers are leveled. You can use it to check the top and the sides of your cake to ensure that it's level, especially if you're making a fondant cake. You want to ensure that it's level, because remember, fondant is one that if there are any dents or cracks or any kind of mistakes, it will definitely show in the final design. But with buttercream, it doesn't have to be perfect, because the buttercream can literally just hide all those cracks, all those dents, or imperfect trimmings. Buttercream can hide that. So here I'm just trimming the side of my cake. Have I mentioned that this cake is moist? Be not deceived, we only make moist cakes here. I love to use my more sturdy cake layers. I've said this in my previous videos. When working on tiered cakes, it's always advised to do what's best for structure. Okay, when it comes to building a tiered cake, no matter how many tiers you are working on, always make sure that your base tier is your most sturdy cake layer, so that it doesn't press or just fall to the side or compress or whatever. Yeah, don't do that. But in this case, the entire cake was just one flavor, which was good for me. And even if it were to be different flavors, definitely I know how I would have gone about it. But this particular cake was just one flavor all through. Now I'm working on my 5-inch in diameter cake tier. This one is just 2 layers because the layers are quite thick, so it still gave a very good height for the tier, right? So here I added my top layer, and basically the same thing that I did when I was working on the 7-inch cake. You're going to just make sure you level it, check it's well centered, it's well leveled, trim where necessary, and just ensure that it is perfect, right? So once it's leveled, I went ahead to insert a dowel rod in the center to help me hold this together, because it's a small cake. Small cakes tend to be tricky when you're trying to do this. They can really move around or even bend some kind of funny way, so you just have to make sure you secure it properly before you go in with your final trimming. Whenever you're trimming your cakes, I advise that you go in little by little. Don't just go in with a whole lot, like a slice of cake, or just huge shavings off of your cake. You don't want that. Go in little by little. If need be, go again and check out wherever it is you missed. Make sure you trim it thinly, nicely, gently. Do not just go in at once with huge slices or chunks or trimmings of cake. It's going to be a sad story at the end of the day, okay? So that's what I'm doing here. Again, I've said this in one of my videos where I talked about why we trim cakes and crumb coating and all of that. You can check that out on my channel, amongst many other nice videos that give tutorials, tips, and clarity to a lot of things that pertain to baking. So you should really check that out, especially if this is your first time here. You are so welcome. Check out my channel. I post everything baking, cake decorating, and cooking as well. Yes, so as I was saying, back to the video. So you want to go in gently with your trimmings, right? However, it's not compulsory. You can go ahead and decorate your cake. In fact, you can skip crumb coating. I've noticed there are some bakers who actually skip crumb coating. They don't crumb coat their cakes, and it works for them. Whatever works for the kind of cakes you bake, just do that. Now, if you notice here, I'm using some of the crumbs that I trimmed off to fill a kind of gap that is like not giving me that really smooth, seamless look. This is optional, especially because I was working with buttercream. But of course, I really just wanted a smooth base regardless of whatever kind of frosting I was working with. So I went in with my crumbs. Now, mind you, this is like selective pick of crumbs. These are like the innermost part of the cake that I shaved off. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's basically moist, right? It's not dried out, caramelized cake back that I'm just putting back in. No, okay? So what this does is, here I was trying to show you guys that my cake is actually moist. If your cake can mold together without you adding buttercream, it is moist. If it is a crumbly dry cake, it will not mold like this. It will just be crumbly. You'll just be seeing cake crumbs everywhere. Look at this beauty. Look at the moisture now. What are you saying? This cake is moist. Anyway, here I was just using my 5-inch diameter cake pan to kind of have an idea of where my top tier was going to go. So I used it to make an outline on the top of my cake so that I can find the center and insert my central dowel, which I'm doing here. Right, so this helps me to secure my top tier. And then I was marking my other dowels that I would be inserting around this one to hold up the weight of the top tier. Again, I've said this in my previous videos of stacking cakes. Whenever I'm making tiered cakes, I do not like to make my dowels the exact same height of my cake. I like to leave a little bit extra space just so that the cake does not directly rest on the base tier or bottom tier, as the case may be. So that is what I do. However, you may decide to do something different. You may decide to make it the same level as your cakes. Feel free to do whatever works for you. Here I inserted my top tier, and that is secure. So now we are going to crumb coat. If you notice, my buttercream is very thick. This is because I used what they call concrete buttercream. Okay, what is called concrete buttercream is basically buttercream that has like 70% icing sugar to like 30% butter. Basically, the icing sugar is much more than your butter. That is what a concrete buttercream is. Your buttercream is going to be strong. It's going to be like concrete. What this does, it gives you a more secure buttercream, especially if you're doing this maybe for like an outdoor event, or you're going to be in a very hot environment and you don't want your buttercream to just melt off quickly. In my case here, I did this because this cake was going to be for an outdoor afternoon, a very hot afternoon, 1-year-old birthday celebration. So I made sure that I did concrete buttercream to just make sure that, okay, no matter how long the cake stays out until they are ready to cut it, it will not melt. If I were to do my regular buttercream recipe, which is actually like 50-50 ratio for me, that is what works for me. Some people have like 60-40, the 60 being butter and the 40 being icing sugar. People have different ratios for their buttercream recipe. If I were to do something like that, the cake would melt pretty quickly in the slightest discomfort. But with this concrete buttercream, this cake stayed. The cake got to the venue by 12, and the party started 3 p.m. and lasted till evening. And so this cake didn't bulge, it didn't melt or whatever, even up until the party ended and they shared the cake and all of that. So yeah, that's why I love me some concrete buttercream. Okay, so here I was just ensuring that I have my clean edges, even though it's a crumb coat. I decided to do this. You know, we have to make sure everything is perfect. And here I was just scraping the top of my top tier, after which I went in with the final coat, which is in blue frosting. So I decided to use the piping bag for this. This is one of the safest and cleanest way to ways. This is like one way that is safe and very clean for you to have like a clean finish for your final coat, using piping bag to apply your final coat. This just gives a very clean finish. I don't even know how else to explain it, but if you want to be going in with your spatula like I usually do, with your swoops and all of that, trying to just apply, there is like a higher risk of mixing in some crumbs, getting some parts not so covered properly. You have to like keep going back and back and back to like refill every kind of gap or whatever. But with this method, you go back like little times. It's not as much as when you are using your palette knife. This method is easier. Let me just put it like that. It makes the work easier. But my only issue with it is the pressure on my palm, squeezing that piping bag, especially for the fact that this was concrete buttercream. I'll leave you to imagine the amount of pressure I had to put on my palm, squeezing the buttercream out of that piping bag. It was serious work. That is just what I don't like about the piping bag method. But if you ask me, I think it's like the go-to method when it comes to applying your buttercream and getting like a really smooth final finish. It's perfect. Okay, so here I'm just going with my scraper and I'm getting me my smooth base. I started with the bottom tier, went in with the top tier. You can really do this any way you like. For some people, they prefer to decorate the tiers separately and then stack them. But for me, I like to do it all at once. Again, like I mentioned in my previous videos, I do not refrigerate or freeze my buttercream cakes. Okay, it doesn't work for me here in Nigeria where I live. Wherever you may be in the world, if you always chill your buttercream cakes, then you can decorate your tiers separately. You can decorate it like this. Whatever works for you is fine, right? For me, decorating it separately will make it more difficult stacking it together, because it's like, okay, the buttercream is still very soft. It can smear. It can just get really messy trying to attach that top tier on, the bottom tier and all that stuff. So yeah, I rather just already stack it while it's not even yet crumb coated, and then just do my decoration from there. So at this point, I dipped my scraper into some hot water, or like warm water that is like almost hot, and then I went in to like smoothen my frosting. So this gave it a really perfect smooth finish, and kind of helped me clear out whatever air bubbles were visible before. And I do this for all my buttercream cakes. Whenever I am doing a buttercream cake, whether it is concrete buttercream or not, I always, sometimes, not always, but most times, I dip my scraper in some warm water and then I go around the cake. So at this point, our cake is fully decorated. I just needed to add on my toppers. These are inedible prints, by the way, but you can use edible prints, whatever is easily accessible to you. Please feel free to use them. So I attached this at the base of the bottom tier, which is like the city that Spidey and his amazing friends are saving or fighting or whatever. One wasn't enough, so I printed two, and I was just placing this around the bottom of the cake. And then after this, I added on the characters, which are Spidey and his amazing friends. And I attached all of this, attached the name of the celebrant in the center of the cake, attached the other friends, the other amazing friends, and then I decided, let me pipe some spider webs. I just wanted to do something really unique with this design, and I first did the bottom tier, and upon doing that, I said, let me look at the picture on my phone for reference, because I had like reference pictures for this spider web thingy. And then I noticed that I did the spider web backwards. But it was too late. I was too far gone at this point. I was like, it still looks like webs to me. I'm just going to leave that and make sure that I correct every other web that I do. So for the top tier, I did the web the right way, and at the back of the cake as well, I did it the right way. But this base tier, I was just like, there is no way I'm scraping this off and starting all over. Like, I just left it like that. And to be honest, I think it's not so obvious. I think it actually passed as spider webs. What do you guys think? This is the final look, and yeah, it was really amazing. The celebrant's mom really loved the cake. I got really great reviews, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please do not forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.